Alright, but we're going live.
Way too much ammo, and now I'm about to let it off. Yo, chill.
Yo, what is cracking? What's popping? What's shaking? Let me actually make sure that we're live on the Insta. I'm putting up the we're live. so, but yeah, what's cracking? What's popping? What's shaking? You have joined us for another episode of the Comic Cinematic Universe with Chill and Grace. I'm Chill, and to my right is my co-host Grace. What up, Grace?
Yours untruly.
Yes.
Hello.
What's going on? How was your week?
Oh my goodness, this week has been like crazy. It's been like Brian's birthday, emails, graduation, goodbye party, craziness, but all really cool and fun things. How about yourself?
Man, I think last time we spoke, I had a sore throat, and then following into the weekend, that cold hit me hard, so I actually got sick over the weekend, and that happened to be the weekend that we were celebrating my girl's dad's birthday in Ventura, and I tried to do the best I can. Like, I went out to the beach, but I wasn't out there for too long. Some of the time I was kind of just laying in bed, resting up, like hacking up a storm. But tested negative, so everything is good in that direction. But people still get sick. You know what I'm saying? Like regular sick.
See, I'm proud to say, like, I have not gotten the COVID yet.
I can say
I'm
that
one
too.
of the
Yeah.
small few.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Boom. Yeah.
we're immune here at the CCU.
I'm not. Listen. I can't say I'm so much immune. I'm just now so much a homebody to where you won't catch me out there in the streets like how I used to be. Like, the only time I'm really going out is either grocery stores or to the movie theaters, and that is it. And like, even in the movie theaters now, like, I'm making sure we get the two seats that are like on the side next to the aisle, sitting next to no one. So yeah, I'm still keeping my distance here.
Yeah, see, I'm mostly a homebody too. Like, we go out, we hit the comic book shops and stuff, but like, we're pretty safe, you know? Definitely trying to do more things now that like things are a little like, most people have like, I don't know.
Right.
I think everyone's gotten it at this point,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just not as prevalent. But yeah, I'm so excited for today's episode because we are doing the Marvel halftime predictions. And I've got mostly Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, and a little bit of Thor notes on my end. Where did your deep dive take you?
I'm gonna freestyle this one. Don't worry about it. I got this.
You're like, don't you worry about me.
But I did happen to pull some pictures that we're gonna chat about regardless. Because Phase 4, as of right now, we've already gotten a lot. Let's say I think it's because it's 11 projects total. I think it's maybe 4 or 5 movies, and the rest are TV shows. Yes, we have 6 TV shows and 5 movies. And today I actually rewatched Kevin Feige's kind of slate for the rest of. I don't even want to say it's the rest of Phase 4. He was just kind of giving us what to look out for. So it's like, we already got what we've already gotten, but of course we're gonna get Wakanda Forever. Now we're getting Miss Marvel. We're getting She-Hulk. We're getting Armor Wars. We're getting help me out here. What else are we getting?
Guardians of the Galaxy, the holiday special.
And a movie
we're
to
supposed
follow.
to be
Yeah.
getting, yeah, and we're supposed to be getting What If season 2. That was like
Correct.
slated on the Disney Days, something like that. And I think that's one of the projects that is still TBD in terms of like a specific date for release.
Mm-hmm.
And Guardians of the Galaxy is very similar. It's meant to be towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in terms of predictions, like say earlier you asked me earlier this week you asked me in terms of a format. So, as far as how you want this to go, is this more so predictions and what we expect to see just in terms of in the shows that are listed, or is this also connected to the stories that we've already seen and we're kind of predicting what goes forward from those stories?
I mean, a little bit of both. I think the main projects I have like heavy notes on are like the films, like To Remain, Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy, which is going to be on, I believe, straight into Disney Plus, but it's going to be pretty lengthy, like close to a movie time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little bit of extra juice for like Thor: Love and
Oh
Thunder.
my goodness.
And of course this, and of course this means a lot for the overarching stories we're going to see, especially because these projects are at the tail end of the year. I mean, that's going to set up the stories we see next year. Because I mean, like when you look at the titles, we still have so much. We have like the Marvels. I don't think Secret Invasion comes out until next year as
Next
well,
year.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got the zombies. We have, I mean, just the TV shows alone, let alone like the movies, it's a lot. So, a little bit of everything. But I'm thinking we can start off with just some of like the movie highlights and then transition into a little bit of, a little bit of everything from there.
Okay, so in our background, as you can see, I have like little clips of pictures from everything that's pretty much come out so far in Phase 4. So say, as of right now, as far as because we did like favorite moments of the shows, but one movie that I feel like as of right now is my favorite in the Phase 4. I would say uh, Shang-Chi right now. And say as far as what we got and what I'm looking forward to, I'm still kind of on the back end of him being the quote unquote strongest, just based off of what we kind of talked about as far as the power of the Ten Rings. But say the way it ended, it gave us kind of like almost, I don't want to say a cliffhanger, but it left us to wonder what's coming because I think this is the maybe the first movie in the phase to where um we may have talked about it on stream in terms of being multi-dimensional or multiversal, because yes, Loki had already come out, um, but as far as films go, No Way Home came out after and then following Multiverse of Madness. So I think the cliffhanger here kind of led us to wonder what's coming with Shang-Chi and if that's going to affect the multiverse as well.
See, something that I think Shang-Chi did super well is that it's a film that's introduced a brand new character
Mm-hmm.
successfully and immediately connected it to the rest of the stories we've seen so far. With like the end credit scene where he meets Wong and he's talking to Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner. Like this was a successful film on its
Mm-hmm.
own, but I think it was just so well done and how it also left just connecting it to everything else. Like that's what we've seen in a lot of like the Infinity Saga that I think made it so beautiful is that it can easily kind of be woven and meshed together to everything else. And it's one of the things we've highly kind of credited Marvel for in like their ability to just weave these beautiful like stories together.
Mm-hmm.
And Shang-Chi is like one of those great examples. So yeah, Shang-Chi was definitely like a highlight of this phase so far.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone was surprised by just how much they love this character right off the bat,
Right.
especially being that he's not like a,
Huge.
superficial
Right. Right.
character in terms
Exactly.
of the comics,
Mm-hmm.
like he's not one that's right on like the front of the stands in the comic book shops. They're not the ones that you really think of. And really, unless you've dug deep in the comics, this is probably a character you've never heard of before,
Correct.
you know?
I would say before whichever D23 that was years and years ago, once they announced, uh, and I actually heard Kevin Feige today pronounce it Shang-Chi, so apologies, internet. Once they announced Shang-Chi, I literally had no idea who this character was, you know? When they said this was Marvel's first kung fu movie, I mentioned it before, I was already in, but character wise, this isn't, the Hulk. This isn't Iron Man. This is someone new that I know to do kung fu, right? And with him now kind of going forward, I'm expecting more of what we saw here, but now it's going to come to who is he going to be fighting in this crazy world that Marvel's building, you know?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, obviously, like the martial arts is just one of those things that was done so well. We know that he's just like already just a very gifted, talented, like hardworking martial
Mm-hmm.
artist. But now he's got the 10 rings. And we already know that these are like a force to be reckoned with. They can stand up to like multiversal threats, like this was established in this film, which I think is important with, big bads coming into the play that are multiversal. We have to believe that these characters can actually stand a chance. Otherwise, it's kind of like, the Superman storyline in the sense of like, there isn't any stakes or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? If the villain's too powerful and the superhero is not believable to like be able to fend off or vice versa. So that film just did so many great things all around, all around.
Well, do you think, like, say, kind of going forward, I don't even think that it's like, because I'm writing right now in terms of where we see Shang-Chi in a certain category. But before I even place him, I would like to create certain categories for certain characters here. We have street level, which can include Hawkeye and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? And we can also put Shang-Chi's family in there. But I really feel just because of now, Marvel is not only just regular human beings like becoming superheroes. Now it's going to become a test of power levels. And being that I feel like Shang-Chi is maybe high up on the power level chart, being that I think he's kind of almost mastered like the way of that one place, Talo. Is that what that place was called?
Hmm.
You know, I feel like because of that, that would not only put him in the stronger category, but I feel like I would like to see him in like I don't know, off world, but that may be getting too far ahead. I don't know.
I don't think it's that far off. Like with the direction that they're leading to, like immediately, like, he's already joining and like kind of rubbing elbows with the Avengers, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
just at the end of his film. So I don't think that's too far off. I mean, who knows when the ultimate battle is going to take place, right? The Secret Wars, right? I feel like it's around the corner in the sense that like we already know what the big lead is. Whereas I feel like when we were in the Infinity Saga, a lot of us didn't really know where it was leading for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. But yeah, I think it's gonna be sooner than we think in terms of him getting into like that higher up arena
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to big bads and just like the characters that he interacts with, And I think the Ten Rings is a big part of that.
That's why I wanna separate these into different categories, just because
Hmm.
someone mentioned it the other day, and I actually found it interesting to where it's just like they're talking about now they're developing the Daredevil show right on Disney Plus, and from here, of course, we don't know if we're gonna see Matt Murdock, the same Matt Murdock of Netflix, or if this is just gonna be like just a variant of the same actor here in Disney. But either way, they mentioned that they couldn't see Matt Murdock fighting Galactus or something ridiculous, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that when it comes down to category wise, I would put, let's say, Matt Murdock under the
street
street level,
level.
you know. Um, but those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, like, I think that's kind of where everybody is right now in terms of like we have so many characters, and I think it's even like an Infinity War. And I think we can kind of look at the Battle of Endgame as like a layout of how these can happen because you have obviously like Ant-Man taking on like the flying creature thingies, and we have Drax on the ground like stabbing everybody. We see Mantis just putting everybody to sleep. We see Captain Marvel. Like I think because there's also different ranking bad guys, the matches just kind of line up. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like everyone goes for their hunt and what's like the appropriate battle. So maybe as we see Shang-Chi like on this ultimate battle, like 10 rings and all, like taking down these like maybe middle to higher up bad guys, we see people like Punisher, Daredevil on the ground taking on things more like what I mean.
That
So
and
I
that's where
think
I'm going. Like, because say I think as of right now, I know we're talking Phase 4, right? And there's no definite conclusion to when Phase 4 ends and Phase 5 begins. But I think Phase 4 is the setup to pretty much break everything down in Phase 5. And by break everything down, I mean everybody is going to make their respected teams in which it all works. Like I think I read somewhere where Feige said there's never gonna be like a big movies like Endgame again with all these characters in one movie. Now I think by that he could just mean like we're just gonna have different teams, work different levels, and the stories are gonna be great regardless. But we're gonna watch because it's all different stories. Let's say if we do have, let's say a multiversal faction of Marvel that is already with like it has like a whole bunch of characters that are kind of being introduced right now. You know, being that we're getting a whole bunch of multiversal action. Um, but like again, there can be another faction of another team doing like let's say West Coast Avengers to where who knows
yeah.
they may not go up into space and that just may be something different. But I think Phase 4 right now is really setting up Phase 5 if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. And this kind of parallels phase one of the Infinity Saga, right? And like phase one, we're getting a lot of single, like solo films to introduce like the characters Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, etc. And then, it kind of all comes together in what used to be like the big movie that all of us were like, wow, we've never seen a team up like this, just the first like Avengers team up film. And I think it mirrors this and that here. Like we haven't had like solid teams just yet. Like we can kind of sniff out the teams that are around the corner, like the Young Avengers, the Defenders, potentially West Coast Avengers, etc. Because the teams are not the same as it was before. Like Avengers, like so many of them are like just everywhere, dismantled. Really, like it's not the original team from the first
Right.
or the first phase.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not the same team from the second. And so this is definitely going to lay out where maybe we see the teams kind of start coming together at the end of this phase or something, somewhat of like the way we saw it in Iron Man 2 and in Hulk, where we just see people starting to actively recruit, kind of like Val, right? She's actively recruiting.
Correct.
She's probably like the biggest example of, the sensation that a team is assembling around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else I think is like still kind of loose ends, which this phase I think is meant to be. We're laying out the next 10 years. I saw something where it's like there's 30 projects in the works right now. Like that's a lot. That's a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're totally right. Like this is just going to bleed into whatever the second phase brings in. And I really hope we start to see like team ups, because I think that's what I get so excited about, is seeing these characters we like interact with other characters and like seeing that chemistry.
We'll say kind of looking at like the picture that we have in the background. Um, I feel like now it's a matter of who knew would team up with who, like who, like I don't see Moon Knight teaming up with Falcon or Kate Bishop or who knows, like actually no, I feel like honestly after watching
I
Moon
can see
Knight
him
I
with
feel
all of
like
them.
you can because I see him
Yeah.
riding his solo dolo wave.
he's gonna for a while, right? Like that was the statement that was made earlier that kind of confused everybody. Like it's just meant to be like he has a lot of development on his own as a character before he teams up with the rest of the MCU, which I'm okay with
Mm-hmm.
because I'm cool with the slow pacing. I'm cool with all the development. And when it does come to the place where we get to see him interact with other people, I think it'll be really cool because he's going to be a totally different character than where we left off on the first season, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I'm excited, and I'm just excited for all of them, like Steven, Mark, and what was it? Is it
Jake.
Jake?
Mm-hmm.
Jake,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how they interact with other characters. Um, and so it's exciting to kind of see it starting to lay out. Like I feel like that's it. It's just like the foundation is what we're laying out. Like nothing's kind of built just yet on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more so like we're just setting the base for what's to come in these next phases to follow, you know?
Yeah. And just speaking of phases to follow, I now after watching Multiverse of Madness, I'm going to currently predict that we won't get mutants until Phase 5.
Honestly, with what's lined up as of yet, I don't think you're off the mark. Because I feel like if any film that is on the roster right now that I can think of, this is the one that all of us really wait on to be the true introduction of mutants into the world of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
And since it wasn't, I think you're right that it's just gonna be a little while before, like maybe an end credit scene in a random movie, like of like something to give us a little stronger of a nudge. I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like the concrete introduction, I think you're right. I don't think sadly, I don't think we're gonna get it until like phase five, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. What do you have? Tell me.
I got a lot of Black Panther stuff that I wanted to chit chat about because we haven't really talked much about Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
We've had, little discussions here and there, but since it is a little, around the corner, um, production's all wrapped up. It's still set to be for the end of the year. And I think this is the film that we have a lot of questions for. Obviously, since like Chadwick Boseman's
Passing.
passing,
Mm-hmm.
it's put a lot of a big question mark in terms of what the plot. So I have a lot of things in terms like what is known,
Wait, hold on.
and then go
I want
ahead.
to give the people a disclaimer because say in watching the Kevin Feige like presentation, I was taking screenshots and he announced Black Panther 2. They didn't have a name for it then, but they said July 8th. And I just want to make it clear it's November 11th. So I apologize, guys. It's not July 8th. Don't mind the date. But I just wanted to put that out there. So continue, please.
Yeah. And that's a lot. Yeah. And that's kind of like the theme post pandemic. Everything changes like in a second, you
Right.
know? I think we had like a whole week where we just got like notification after notification of pushbacks. I mean, DC took out all of like their films that were slotted for this year, which really sucked.
Yeah.
But kind of bringing it back to Black Panther, I've kind of divided this into like the known, and then we can kind of talk about questions.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot to kind of pick your brain
Let's
about,
do it.
but I have a little bit of a list of the known things going on for Black Panther as of yet. So we do know. We got a statement from, I think it was Kevin Feige, but I could be wrong, just stating that this film is going to be all about Chadwick Boseman. Like it is going to address him. He's not going to be recasted. And I did see something that he's also not going to be digitally like imposed. So I'm really intrigued like, how that's going to come around. Like, are they going to just talk about him? You know what I mean? Like I'm curious on your take or if you have any predictions or thoughts on how that's going to go about.
I'm going to say it's going to be a prequel.
A prequel?
Mm-hmm.
Like in what way?
Let's say, if anything, let's say they go the route of getting to know young T'Challa. Like because I know as of right now, we already stated that Shuri may become the next Black Panther, but who knows how that can play out? Because I don't see that happening at the start of the movie. So who knows? Let's say we get kind of like a early on story of T'Challa for a second, and then it kind of fast forwards to maybe post Endgame. Something happens, and then they have to elect a new Panther, and then enter Shuri and hopefully Bast. And being that Kevin Feige's on the screen, I do want to say, Kevin Feige, don't let anything that happen to Bast. Okay, thanks, appreciate it.
And just to go on that note, like that could very well be the case. Like I said, I think this film has a huge question mark for a lot of us, but there is going to be a funeral scene. Like I've seen the pictures. I got an in.
Oh, yeah.
I have a very big insider, but there is going to be a funeral scene. So like the one I have like the most suspicion of whose funeral it's going to be. I mean, like I imagine it's going to be T'Challa's, you know, but it's like, you know, I'm just so curious as to how they're going to make it. And you know, they're going to be taking this very like delicately because they understand the sensitivity of the fandom, you know, having lost such an amazing actor and obviously the influence that he just kind of put in with Marvel all throughout. So I know they're gonna do a good job of it. I say this shyly post like multiverse of badness, but they have to. You know what I mean? Like this is such a delicate situation. Being that there is a funeral scene, I'm assuming it's going to be for T'Challa. But is it gonna be like, oh, and by the way, he somehow died, like post Endgame? You know, it's very intriguing to me.
Right, like say because the last time we saw him, he was at Tony's funeral. So it's like it didn't nothing happened in battle, but who knows? Who's to say that in battle he could have got stabbed by an alien, but but he was standing tall at the funeral. But later on, there could have been some after effects from that stab. Who knows? You know, because if it's like something to where he has like a rare disease, then I don't want to say that's cheap, but like we need something that makes sense. And I think I don't know, I don't want to see like a CG someone else trying to go for the title of king and he loses, you know. So like we have Ryan Coogler on the screen right now, and he directed the first one, and being that he did such an amazing job, not only with this, but I really liked what he did with the first Creed, then I feel like he would do a good job just to make sure this is right for Chadwick.
Yeah, and like I feel like I do trust the creative minds behind this film. You know, I think the fear is kind of what you mentioned is like I just hope they don't make it in a cheap way, which I really don't think that they would. But it's like I really am so like I want to know how they do it. But kind of moving on from the funeral scene and just kind of the comment of like this is going to be all about Chadwick Boseman. We know that Namor will be introduced into this film. There was a lot of leaks a while back of just kind of the setup for these underwater scenes, and then later we've seen, you know, like Marvel like post pictures themselves of like the whole underwater scenes as well. And we talked about. Go ahead. It was on the Marvel, like I think it's there's like a post of the setup with like a comment from one of like I think the directors may have been Kevin Feige, I'm not sure. But there was like a post and there's a lot of pictures of like the water scene. So we know Namor's on. We know we're gonna get some underwater scenes. You ready? I've seen an underwater throne of for a villain that I do not think is Namor. So there's another underwater dweller that I think is going to be set up as the villain. And we talked about this too, about how in Endgame there was like a nudge to Namor and the conflicts that Wakanda historically have with the Atlanteans in the comics.
On the holographic Zoom call that they had.
Yeah. Like I wrote it down here. I looked back into Endgame. I was like, I want to get the exact quote, but it's right because it's Nat and Okoye, and I'm just gonna say this is a lot of Okoye sass. Like when Nat is just like, how are we handling like this these tremors right under the African plate, and Okoye is like, Nat, we handle it by not handling it. Right. Obviously, I think this is just to like sway them away from the area, so none of them wants to like kind of investigate themselves. But this was like what I imagined to be like a direct link to it. And Marvel does this all the time, like little small comments that are actually uh, like weigh heavy on what's to come, you know?
Well, with that being said, then that can further go into the prediction of this movie could possibly be about the the ongoing dispute that Wakanda has had with Atlantis. And if Okoye said that in Endgame, she could have just been playing coy just because it's a Wakanda issue, and if anything,
Yeah.
they're gonna handle it their way. You know, they don't want anything else to or anybody else to investigate because who knows? The Atlanteans could have possibly been somehow affected by the meteor that hit, and they have their own weapons made from I don't want to say, yeah, it's vibranium. I was gonna say adamantium, but vibranium, you know. So if anything, that could be what this movie is about, and more so the dispute through the time of, let's say, uh, T'Chaka, the dad, and maybe a young T'Challa in the past, and then, like I mentioned before, somehow it'll get to that funeral scene, but who knows? This movie could, in fact, be a pre blip, pre everything, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It leads me to a lot of questions.
I don't think it's going to be based pre-blip, you know, but there is supposed to be actually like a flashback scene from like the 1600s, like the medieval ages, which to me is very curious, because I don't remember when they mentioned that Basque like left the herb on Wakanda for them to, you know, create the Black Panther. Like I don't know when that happened.
It
So
said,
I'm
I think it said
wondering.
at least 1,000 years ago. So
Oh,
this is way before like 15 and 1600s.
yeah, yeah, you're right. Just kidding. But I was gonna say, like, I think you know what I was gonna say. I feel like I was hoping it would be like the scene where this like actually happens, like beyond just like the cartoon version that we saw in the first one. I thought that was gonna be kind of cool. But we will get a flashback sequence, whether this is set like in blip, pre-blip, whatever. We are gonna get a flashback. And I'm assuming, well, it's obviously going to be involving like a Black Panther that's not T'Challa, and I'm
Correct.
excited for that. Yeah.
Okay.
I
No,
Oh,
go
I
ahead.
thought you were gonna say
No, no,
something.
no.
Okay, I kind of have a lot here. Let me see. Okay, so I found a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked up Bast, obviously, because we've had a lot of discussion about her, right,
Mm-hmm.
the Black Panther goddess. And I'm just going to quote T'Challa from, I believe this is the quote that he has with Nat in Civil War
Mm-hmm.
when, you know, after his father dies. In my culture, death is not the end. It's more of a stepping off point. You reach out with both hands, and Bast and Sekhmet, which I'm so certain I'm saying wrong, they lead you into a green veld where you can run forever. So we've talked a lot about Bast,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't talked about this second god that is clearly mentioned in that same statement that, you know, we pulled Bast from and have had further discussions.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll revisit that in a second. But when it comes to Bast, when we look her up on the Marvel.com website, where they break down a lot of little, like, just kind of summaries of characters, main storylines involving them, uh, listed next to Bast is allies. And the allies that are listed are, ready? Thor, the Asgardians in general, Brunhild, which is also Valkyrie. That's like one of the versions of Valkyrie, is like her actual name. Jane Foster as the mighty Thor, enemies Gore the God Butcher. All of this points to Thor: Love and Thunder. So I know you are definitive. You've already known. You're solidified, and I'm just adding more to that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's done, guys. It's confirmed 1000%. No longer speculation, no longer prediction. It is like It's done. It's basically written right here.
Right.
And I was excited to share that because I know how excited you were when we saw the snippet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But revisiting that one, the other god that was mentioned, Sekhmet,
Mm-hmm.
all of this, I'm telling you, when I was looking up, I was just like, dude, Chill's gonna like freak out.
Why?
So this one, ready? Okay, so she is, let me just look it up. So it is based on like Wakandan mythology, and obviously it was mentioned in like the statement that T'Challa made, but also historically, this is an Egyptian goddess. She's like a lioness goddess.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about, well, you mentioned specifically in our like Thor discussion of like, I wonder if we're gonna see any Egyptian goddesses in this like council or this assembly of like deities that we seem to be seeing in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition, this particular one also has connections, like strong relations to Khonshu. So I just thought that was cool. So I'm wondering if you're right, and we're gonna get some Egyptians showing up in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Say when it comes down to what you looked up, are you saying that this is in the Marvel universe or in real life she was Egyptian?
These, well, both. So in the MCU, I only see the discussions that are connected with Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
In our world, this is a deity that also is based in Egyptian mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Mythology, and I believe in both cases she has connections to Khonshu, which we've discussed heavily, especially because we're not too far off from our Moon Knight breakdown.
Well, then that just coincides with like I think I may have brought it up in our Moon Knight or one of our Moon Knight breakdowns that uh, in real life Bast is short for Bastet, and that's actually an Egyptian goddess. You know, so
Yeah.
if anything, that's where like I was kind of coming to the conclusion that the Wakandans almost kind of share these Egyptian deities, which in the movies, of course, they're separate. You have the Wakandans, and then you have the Egyptians. But after the one episode of Moon Knight, to which that the hippo god she referenced, that plane in which we've already seen, I feel like if anything, those two cultures are they're connected in a way to where they're so close, but they're not. You know.
They have a lot of overlap.
Right.
They do,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so this all excited me because I wonder if, along with Bast, who's basically all but confirmed in this council that we see in Thor: Love and Thunder,
Mm-hmm.
we're also going to see this lion deity that's also very heavily involved in the Wakandan like afterlife, right? Afterlife, and just guiding into this field, right,
Yeah.
of the ancestral plane. So I got really excited. I thought this was a fun deep dive. I got really pumped, and I was just very proud of myself.
I think one. Wait. Wait. Here, I'm gonna make a note. Let's
You're
talk
going pen and paper today. I love it.
Thor. And back to what is this? What is this congregation called? You say?
I have it in my earlier notes. Give me one moment. It's just right next door to what I'm looking at right now. It is the Congress of Worlds.
Congress of Worlds. So if and when we decide to talk about Thor today, I'm gonna bring that back up.
Absolutely. And we can actually talk about it and just let, because I only have like a couple more points for Black Panther, and then we can dive straight into Thor while your
Okay.
thoughts are fresh.
Okay.
So we've had a lot of talk about just kind of how T'Challa is going to be meshed into the story. We talked about the Atlanteans a little bit as well, but Shuri, we know, is going to become the Black Panther. That is like confirmed. No speculation behind that.
Right.
And of course, like we've had a lot of like questions as to how she's going to become the Black Panther. Like, is Bath going to be involved in this? So of course, like anything else, we look at the primary sources, and so I went into the comics just to get an idea of how she initially gets her powers. So let me just kind of scroll down here. So I'm just going to quote this super quickly. And again, this is from Marvel.com. So the princess, referring to Shuri, focused her efforts on proving her worth by completing a series of challenges. She walked barefoot across fire, meditated for hours in a scorpion pit, and even free climbed the mountain that was home to the heart-shaped herbs. herbs that happen to be surrounded by the pride of panthers. So it seems like on her journey to kind of prove her worth,
Mm-hmm.
as a leader of Wakanda, because at this point, I believe she's already been
Made,
what's the word?
basically. Let's just say,
Made queen.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 made queen. She basically finds the place where they originally found the herbs that Bast brought into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if it's going to be something similar. I feel like if it is T'Challa's funeral, which I'm assuming, and then she obviously will be the next in line for the throne. I feel like that's so heavy, especially living, I wouldn't say under her brother's shadow, because she has established so much and done so much on her own.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure like there's heavy doubt, and not just like yourself, but also people around, like that you may not be up to the challenge. So maybe she does like go on something similar and, ends up finding the herb to become like, to be imbued with powers of Black Panther,
Yeah. Yeah.
And lastly,
But wait,
oh,
with
go.
that, all I know is being that she is becoming the Black Panther. In terms of conflict, I'm already going to predict that the the Wakandans that live in the mountain, that one huge guy, he's gonna have an issue because he had an issue with
Mbaku?
her in the past. So that's one thing I'm pretty sure we're gonna see on screen.
See, and I really don't think we're gonna see that. Like M'Baku is a villain in a lot of the comics. Especially
Mm-hmm.
the ones I've seen. I don't think I've really seen much where he has been an ally to our main heroes, but I could be wrong. But at least the way we've seen him in the MCU, like M'Baku really did become like, a brother to T'Challa, like in Infinity War when they are prepping for battle, like they're right next to each other, ready to go into combat. And so I don't think they're gonna have conflicts as similar as they did in the first one. You know what I
Do
mean?
you saying that you can't say that simply for the fact that the the stakes were real to the point to where the whole world was threatened, and M'Baku backed T'Challa. Yes, because he was the king of Wakanda, but he was also he's a son of T'Challa. No, not a son of T'Challa, a son of Wakanda. So he's gonna defend Wakanda no matter what. So did he help T'Challa out? Yes. By finding him, letting him have the herb, and basically watching over, I guess, the mom while T'Challa went to go fight Killmonger. But I feel like there still may be some hate in his heart, But we shall see. That's gonna be my prediction for
Yeah.
this.
See, but just to kind of add on to it, because you're totally right. Like, regardless of the way that M'Baku and T'Challa feel towards each other, whether there was animosity or if they've grown past that, he's a son of Wakanda. So 100%, I think that he would have been up to defend it no matter what.
Right.
But I do believe in the end of Black Panther, like they do find common ground, and I think M'Baku and like the rest of like the people like in the mountains come to help on the fight against Killmonger. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like they, and also like on the field, it's like he has. I don't remember the exact quote or like the dialogue between the two, but it's basically like it feels like they're in a like a brotherly type of a vibe, which is why I think because of that, I don't see him very likely having conflicts with Shuri taking the mantle.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take. That's my take.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of like, because if Shuri is going to be the main protagonist, which it's set up that she will be, and then how does that mix with the Atlanteans? I know that in the comics, obviously, like the battle, like it's the like a war between the two is very prevalent in the comics. The conflicts just kind of continue, but Namor at some point offered like a treaty to T'Challa, and he said no.
Mm-hmm.
When Shuri kind of came onto the throne, he like offered the same treaty, and she. Um, takes on the treaty to stop the war between the two people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if we're going to see something along the lines of that in the story.
We'll see. I'm about it. I'm all about it. Um.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I think it's going to be good.
Okay. So, did you have anything else for Black Panther?
Those are all my notes on Black Panther as of yet.
Sorry for all the coughing. I'm just clearing out my chest. But Anywho,
Unacceptable.
sorry about that, guys. Um, we're gonna talk briefly about Thor, being that we've already kind of done predictions for Thor in the last episode. So, the only thing that, let's say, I wrote down, and when it comes down to this Congress of Worlds, yes, there may be the possibility of not only seeing Bast, but like another Wakandan goddess or maybe even Egyptian gods. But I here's what I want. Okay, I'm not gonna say that it's going to happen. This may be super outlandish, but I want there to be a reference, a connection to the eternal Thena. And if anything, I would like, if anybody, not even the rest of the Eternals, I would like to see her in this Congress as well.
Ah, that would be so good. That would be so good. And I definitely see like mention at least, you know what I mean? Because, being that these gods are coming into play, like a lot of people don't know that the um Greek gods and the Eternals are two separate beings,
Correct.
because I think with the Eternals, a lot of people were left with the idea that, oh, these are the gods that we thought to be the Greek gods. I like flipped my hair there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like being that these gods are now coming into play so that there isn't conflict of people being like, oh, wait, I thought like here's Athena, but didn't we have Athena, which is supposed to be Athena? So I feel like it would make sense for them to have some comment of the way that it's lined up in the comics, where the Eternals are the representatives of the Greek gods, the same Greek gods we have in Greek mythology, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're just living in their little pocket dimension of Olympus. So I definitely see that. I do not think, and something, this is where we throw out outlandish predictions and wants and desires.
Mm-hmm.
It has not been the first time that we've thrown something out there and it comes true. So this is the place.
Okay, so let's say kind of moving on because I don't want to go too much into Thor. If y'all want to know more, watch our last episode. We did a huge deep dive. I think it maybe took an hour or so. But let's say when it came down to when it comes to the next thing that I saw on the slate, initially Kevin Feige, he named uh, the second Captain Marvel 2, but now it's stated to be the Marvels. And now looking at the cast, it makes more sense because it's not only Brie Larson, but we are going to get Miss Marvel from the show that's just about to come out. And which Rambo is it? It's not Monica Rambo. It's uh
um Why am I
wait, it is Monica.
wait,
She is
what it's
Monica. So
Monica. It's
all three of them are stated to be in the next Marvel movie, and this is going to be a quote unquote different take, just simply for the fact that in the comics you've stated that Rambo, she's been called Captain Marvel. Yes.
yes. So she's gone by many aliases: Photon, Captain Marvel. There's another one that I'm linking on, but she's had a couple of different aliases in the comics and different transformations.
But I like the idea of now it's not just gonna be a Brie Larson movie, just because Brie Larson and her emotionless character. I don't even know if we can get uh, a sequel to that, because Fury, he's off world. We don't know what's going on with Fury until Secret Wars. So, if anything, uh, this movie, I don't know the time in which it's going to be set, but being that all three of these actresses are in it, I think it's just going to be more so present post blip.
Yeah, I would assume so too, which would I mean, unless we're seeing Nick Fury like on base of like the scrolls, which I
Mm-hmm.
think can totally be the case. Like maybe we're dealing with I forget his name, but one of the scrolls that's impersonating Fury, and maybe we get like a strong tie-in to the Secret Invasion or things like that as well. But yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense that they're going into this direction of just kind of having Captain Marvel almost like umbrellaed with other characters versus having her own like definitive like Captain Marvel 2 just because of how low performing that film was,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm excited to see like a what's the word? A redemption for this character because Captain Marvel's so huge. You
When
know,
you
like she
say
is one of the powerful. Go ahead.
no, continue. I'm listening.
Oh, I was just saying when you know when like Captain Marvel is one of the higher like powerful heroes that we have. You know, like in What If she was the one who was lined up to be the most likely to defeat like the Ultron 2.0 like hybrid, you know, and obviously she lost, but it was very sad to see Captain Marvel um not deliver as highly as we would have loved it to. And so I hope this is like a redemption story for that character in the MCU, so we can see more of her because Brie Larson is a very very talented actress, and I'd love to see them do more with that character.
I'm looking at our ranking of the movies and see that we put Captain Marvel in 23. And when you say low performing, it's hard to put that movie up against every other movie that has come out in the MCU. But for me, I still enjoyed it. And aside that movie aside, we saw her briefly take on Thanos, and when she was introduced into that battle, she took out that whole ship that was about to wipe everybody out, you know? So, if anything, we have a good idea of we're going to go back to talking about power levels to where she's at. And of course, she's high in the chain um, of power. But now, say when it comes down to these new characters, like we're about to be introduced to Miss Marvel here, I'm curious to see where this show takes her, because watching that trailer again and just seeing now, initially I didn't see the bracelet, but now we're going to see that bracelet is the source of her power. And then on
Mm-hmm.
top of that, seeing Monica Rambeau kind of tap into these newly acquired powers that she got from WandaVision. Who's to say Captain Marvel is even up there anymore in comparison to these three? We don't know, you know. And what's her? Do you remember her name in the movie?
Carol Danvers.
That's right, Danvers. Because I don't want to keep calling her Captain Marvel because we just have a whole bunch of Marvels
Years.
here, you know. So, yeah, Danvers right now, though she may seem super strong, I'm curious just to see what the Marvels are gonna give us with the other two.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what the conflict that Monica Rambeau has with Carol Danvers because this is very like obvious in WandaVision, and they didn't really like dive deeper into it. And being that these two are going to share a screen, like I'm sure we're going to get all the tea
Wait,
on that drama.
wait, you're saying she has conflict with Danvers? Because if anything, she
Monica
was cool with her mom. Like at the end of Captain Marvel, her as a little kid, she was quote unquote, let's say, friends with.
fangirling.
Right. So where would that conflict come from? Would you think?
In WandaVision, I believe it's episode 2 or episode 3, when they're discussing like Wanda and her ranking and Captain Marvel, Monica makes a statement that's very definitively like suggesting that she has some form of aggression or like animosity against Carol Danvers. And they don't really dive deeper into it than that, but it's very, very clear in that episode.
I'm gonna have to
So
watch it again.
I'm excited to see what
I
was
said I'm gonna
that?
have to watch it again.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what that is because you're right. Like at the end of Captain Marvel, like I mean, she wears Carol's sweater. Hell, freaking Monica's the one who picked her colors. Like after she realized that the Kree aren't really good guys. You know what I mean? So yes, like we left them in a really good note, which is what I am like so curious to see what caused that rift between them,
Mm-hmm.
like and I wonder if that has anything to do with Maria Rambo's passing. I'm just I'm excited to see that because I want the tea, I want the juice.
Maria Rambeau, she passed from a certain type of cancer. You know, initially
Cancer,
she was
yeah.
beating it, then Monica was blipped away, and then she came back from the blip to hear that it came back viciously. So if they somehow connect that to uh, Captain Marvel, I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna work.
Well, I mean, I think I'm curious in terms of like if that has anything to do with their conflict. Like maybe she's like upset that she wasn't there. You know what I mean during Maria's like difficult times because she's off world. Like maybe she's that's what I mean. Like I feel like especially when you have someone passing. Like I mean, you go through all of the stages of grief. Like anger, I think, is a huge part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm just curious. You know, because obviously their connection is very much tethered with like Maria, who is Carol's best friend, you know? So I'm curious if that is like maybe some form of a clue as to why these two are now having some kind of conflict, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I know or I don't know. Let's predict that if anything, we're gonna get a little bit more sword here because I don't think we're gonna get much sword in the other movies. Like the last time we got it, of course, was in WandaVision, but I remember seeing something to where in the comics, Sword eventually had their own kind of like space station like headquarters, you know. So
Hmm.
if anything, we know that to be Earth's quote unquote intergalactic police, and I'm curious just to see if they do more of that here in the MCU.
I mean, I'm sure we're gonna see it. Like, I feel like that's almost like introducing like Shield without ever, you know, bringing it up again. Like, I'm sure we're gonna see Sword. Like, I think you're right. This might be like a good movie to kind of either just reference the events of
Mm-hmm.
WandaVision, or and also like I think this is gonna be a really good film to maybe set up some secret invasion things because we
Correct.
know the invasion took place in the 5 years of like the blip, you know. So maybe there's gonna be some like a deeper like understanding of what's going on with that. So I think this film's gonna pack a punch when it comes to a lot of different things that I think are going on in the space, you know?
That's like you kind of bring back up that secret invasion is happening during the blip. And now thinking about it, how it's related to Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau, it's now curious to see. Let's say if we're gonna talk She-Hulk just for a second. If She-Hulk, like we mentioned before, happens during the blip, then if anything, I can see, I can definitely see Secret Invasion happening during, and then somehow in there, that's where we form Sword. So if anything, I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
not Monica, but let's say Monica's mom, because Monica's mom is like one of the founding members of Sword. So if here being that she's still alive during the blip, we may get another, let's say cameo, because we did get that cameo in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and they may bring that actress back for Secret Invasion.
Yeah, yeah. And you know something, actually, now that you mentioned that, being that Maria Rambeau was one of the founders of Sword, and being that she was like, you know, just recovering from cancer, and then, you know, the cancer coming back in the middle of those 5 years, I feel like I don't know if I would believe that in those 5 years she creates an organization where her health is just like so poor. Like, I feel like if anything, that was established maybe earlier
Oh no no no
on.
no no
Like,
no
that's what
no no
I'm
no no! I'm
thinking, you
not
know?
necessarily saying. Okay, let me rephrase. Sword wasn't formed in the 5 year blip. Let's say being that Maria Rambeau has known of aliens since before anybody knew of aliens on Earth with Nick Fury. Let's say Nick Fury went on to create Shield, and then later on Maria went on to form Sword. You know, like pretty much two branches of government, um, which coincidentally Shield and Sword. You know, but let's say Shield was more so for, I forgot the breakdown, but I think that's kind of like a homeland security, to where Sword was more so now intergalactic, being that Nick Fury and her have dealt with the Kree and the Skrulls already, you know. So now fast forward here into the blip, I'm not gonna say it was formed, but I'm just gonna say Sword is gonna be a factor of Secret Invasion, being that Secret Invasion, it involves the Skrulls, We already have Nick Fury, and being that scrolls are a factor, why not bring Rambo in with, I want to say Shield, but with Sword.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I feel like all of that makes so much sense. And then also in WandaVision at the end we do see Maria talk to one of the scrolls, which I think a lot of people, and I'm one of them, think that it is the young scroll that we meet in Captain
Mm-hmm.
Marvel, the one that she kind of plays with and interacts with. And so we know that she still has those connections. I believe that particular scroll was pretending to be a sword agent,
Mm-hmm.
I want to
Correct.
say. And so yeah, like I think honestly all of that is so like possible to happen in this film, or just like, whenever does get brought up, it's gonna probably get brought up
Mm-hmm.
altogether. And also I'm so curious because like Secret Invasion, obviously the scrolls are essentially taking on the personas of a lot of different characters we know
Mm-hmm.
of. In the comics, Skrulls are traditionally like the bad
Correct.
guys. In the
Mm-hmm.
MCU, they haven't really been presented in that way. And we know that Maria, or Monica, I'm sorry, Monica still has these connections with the Skrulls. We know that Nick Fury still has these connections with the Skrulls because he knows that one of them is impersonating him, right? That's not happening against his will. So
Right.
I'm interested to see like how Secret Invasion happens and if it has the same context within that. But yeah, I'm excited to see the way that the Marvels like lines that up, because I think that's the film that's going to give us a lot of answers
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to those events
I don't think we're
specifically.
gonna get anything Kree related, but if anything, this could spark. Because I'm not sure in terms of what comes out first. Because if the Marvels come out first, then who knows? This movie could essentially, actually no, it doesn't even matter, because being that this was during the blip, um, and Monica was blipped away. Like I said before, this movie would happen post blip, but who's to say during the blip a separate faction of scrolls didn't agree with the main leader that we met in the original Captain Marvel, and then he takes a groups to start infiltrating the high positions of the rest of the world, and that's pretty much the Secret Invasion.
Yeah, I mean that could totally be the case, and just because you mentioned the Kree, I agree. I don't think they're gonna play like a huge part, at least in the films or projects that we talked about right now. But at the end of Captain Marvel, when Captain Marvel basically tells them to like f off
Mm-hmm.
and they leave, before they do so, that's when like one of the Kree tells the other Kree, like we will come back. And they're like, oh, for like, referring to what we now know to be the Tesseract. And he's like, no, for
Mm-hmm.
her, right? Because she's very powerful. And I'm wondering if that's ever going to come back into play.
Well, if it happens post blip, then it can't,
If it happens post blip, then it can't. Why do you say that?
because that Kree died holding, or died to the Guardians in the first Guardians.
Is that the same one?
Mm-hmm.
Is
That's
that
Ronan.
Ronan?
Mm-hmm.
Was it Ronan who said it to the other? Or was it the
Ronan is the one that said that we'll be back for her.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Then you are totally right. That is
But
correct.
if anything,
Man.
if I don't know, because now you mentioning that, it's like, how can that play into that story? So.
Yeah, maybe not this particular story. Like maybe they had, I mean, obviously they had different plans for Captain Marvel because I don't think they expected it to not be, received as it
Mm-hmm.
did. It was still a fun movie. Like I watch it. I love like a lot of big parts of it. I enjoy big parts of it, but the main character itself was a little bit of a flop, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I'm sure like they had maybe intentions to use those things because, it's not like Marvel to maybe give a plot line or a potential plot line or conflict without them expecting to use it down the line, even a decade down the line. We've had films that really don't deliver certain elements until way towards the end, right? So it's just something that I remembered when you mentioned the Kree, that I was like, I wonder like what your thoughts are with that.
Say,
What you scribbling
say,
down?
so now when it comes down to Phase 4, okay, I'm off of the Marvels. Okay, I'm gonna just take Marvels off real quick. But say when it comes down to what you just said, as far as things not really being mentioned until later on down the line, do you think in Phase 4, before Phase 5, we will get a reference of the being that is coming out of the ocean that has now frozen?
Hmm. I kind of lean on no. I don't know. I feel I kind of lean on no. Only because I can't think of which project would like have it. I mean, it would make sense for them to because we've talked about this before. Like, have we not had some mention of it in anything since
Mm-hmm.
Eternals when it was such a cataclysmic like
World ending, almost.
Earth or world-ending event? You know what I
Right.
mean? Um, so I don't know. It would make sense too, but I don't know because it seems like a lot of the Eternals things, don't sit well with a lot of us, and maybe they're not going to be bringing it up anytime
Yeah.
soon. I don't know.
Chat says the
Oh,
chat
you know
says nay.
something. Oh, yeah, let's
They
hear.
say nay.
Nay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking nay. I would hope so. I would hope so because it would just satisfy a lot of questions and feelings of Eternals, but I just don't think they will. Maybe Guardians of the Galaxy, being that is it's of that world. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the first films that introduced, the idea of Celestials and things like that.
Well,
So I feel like that would be my safe bet for it, but maybe not.
let's go off of being that it's coming out of the ocean. We just talked about a movie that's dealing with people in the ocean, and who knows, that
Hmm.
may come into conflict. Let's say, if anything, this celestial, which we've known to be kind of ravaged for materials, you know what I'm saying? Let's say his body, Atlantis probably lays claim, being that it's in the middle of the ocean. And who knows, that may be something to battle against vibranium from Wakanda, you know? So
Who
that, like,
knows?
I
Yeah.
would like, of course, this is just me, but you can't leave that unanswered because I know the movie The Eternals, it didn't do that well, but being that you put it out there, Marvel, you have to just you can't just be like, yeah,
Deliver.
you can't just be like, hey, I know we just had a movie with something kind of the ocean, but don't worry about nothing. That was separate. No,
It's Gooch.
it's in this universe. So if anything, I feel like they should bring it back in some way, shape, or form. And being that the Guardians have established that people kind of mine these celestials for materials, then why not? You know?
Yeah, and then yeah, like they do mind like like the severed head of a celestial, so it's already like dead.
Mm-hmm.
This one is not born, you know what I mean? But I do like the idea of like the Atlanteans harvesting, like things from the celestial when we know that that's exactly what they do in Guardians of the Galaxy with the celestial heads.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be kind of cool. And we also know that there's not just like the Atlanteans, but there's also like another underwater, like a water breathing villain that's going to be in play that's not
Mm-hmm.
Namor. So maybe it's him and not the Atlanteans. Like there's options. There's options in terms of how this can be played in. It should be addressed, and I think it'd be cool if it gets addressed in this phase because a lot of people like it's a huge string that's just kind of dangling in the air right
Yeah.
now. But I'm with the chat. I just don't think they're gonna give us the satisfaction in this phase, but who knows,
Man, Eternals, man. You're doing more
dude.
damage than good, you know. But
Oh,
anywho, moving on. I wanna talk about a show that was stated for Phase 4 real quick, and that is Armor Wars. Now, when it comes down to Armor Wars, this is where, if anything, I would put James Rhodes, aka Rhodey, under the street level category, you know, um, just simply for the fact that I don't see him going up into space anytime soon, fighting anything. I feel like if anything, he is going to stay, let's say, earthbound, and being that the premise beyond. I mean, the premise for Armor Wars is people getting a hold of Tony Stark tech. I feel like this would be just a good story for him to shine for one, but to also introduce who is it? Is it
Ironheart?
Riri
Yeah.
Williams? Yeah, to introduce Ironheart, aka Riri Williams. So, um, yeah, that's where I'm at.
And there is a rumor, just a rumor, I don't think it's been confirmed, that actually Riri Williams,
Hmm.
Ironheart, is going to actually have a little bit of a cameo in Black Panther. So who again, that's just like a rumor as of
Yeah,
now. But if we don't get it in Black Panther, I mean, it would just make sense to see it come up in Armor
yeah.
Wars. But there's something nasty about thinking like someone messing with like Tony's stuff.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's like in my head, it's like so disrespectful, and it gets me so it's like so upsetting. You know what I mean? Like it's just like undeserving, you know. But that's what that whole series is going to
Definitely.
tackle. So it's going to be an exciting thing. And as of now, I believe Rhodey's the only one like officially slated, or the actor that plays Rhodey. But when is that? 2023 is when it's supposed to be released.
Yes.
Do you know?
Yeah. So
Okay, so it's coming around.
say with that, right? Because we already kind of got a reference of Stark Tech almost kind of being stolen in Far From Home by Mysterio. But like, say when it comes down to it, being that we've already seen that, now I think it's more so. If I were to predict, I would love to see uh, Hammer come back into the picture. Like we saw him in the second Iron Man 2. I don't know how he's looking actor wise as far as how he's aged, but say if it's come down to Justin Hammer as a character, we know him to quote unquote be arrested. So he's still in the MCU. He wasn't a villain that was like defeated or anything like that. He didn't die or he wasn't killed off. So I feel like from what I have read, Hammer would be one of the main contenders to steal Stark Tech.
Oh yeah, because that's basically what he wanted to do in the second Iron
Mm-hmm.
Man. And just kind of talking strings like left hanging, like he does threaten Pepper, like I'm gonna come after you, basically, and like that threat has yet to be, like fulfilled. And this might be like the case where he kind of comes back for vengeance. We did see Hammer in a prison scene next to one of our favorite side characters, the Mandarin, in like the
Did we?
one-offs. Did you ever get a chance to see it on Disney? We referred to it when we were talking about Shang-Chi
Mm-hmm.
because there's this one-off which basically connects the events of Iron Man 2 into the events of Shang-Chi
Mm-hmm.
and the Ten Rings and all of that. Did you ever get around to watching it?
I think initially, like I mentioned, that was part of like bonus features on the DVD, and I think I
Yes.
remember seeing that when the DVD dropped, however long that was ago.
Okay.
But as of right now, I haven't rewatched it, so I don't even remember Justin Hammer being in that scene.
He's in it. He's got a good chunk in there. It's really funny. You guys should see it. It's on the Disney Plus. I think it's one of those one-offs, but yeah, basically just pulling like the bonus scene that you're. It's the same
Yeah,
scene.
yeah, yeah.
I would definitely say watch it. It is so funny, and it's so interesting how that scene ties in so well with Shang-Chi,
Mm-hmm.
being that that scene came out in Iron Man 2.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, so definitely check it out, guys. It's really good.
I feel like
But I feel like it'd be cool to get him back, like that actor,
I just
that
like the
character.
idea of um we're going into Armor Wars, of course, and me being a huge Iron Man fan, right? I feel like just seeing anybody suit up, even if it's like Rhodey, or even if it's like a villain, or even Ironheart, that to me, I don't know why. I was a fan of the Transformers, so if it came down to just hearing all those mechanical noises, kind of like how like the first Iron Man was like with him putting on the suit. I feel like that would just be so satisfying to me. Like yes, the bleeding edge armor that he had in Endgame and Infinity War was cool with the nanotech, but I don't know. I just like the idea of just like the parts kind of being assembled onto the person, you know. So that's kind of what
Yeah.
I'm expecting. I'm not really expecting to see anybody in nanotech like Tony, you know.
Yeah. Real quick. Do you have a particular like favorite Iron Man suit up scene that you're fond of? Because we got a lot of different variations, especially with all the different like marks of the suit. Do you have a particular one that stands out in mind?
Yeah, Iron Man 2 from the suitcase.
Oh yeah, that's good. Where he like slams
Yeah,
and then goes, "Chuk, chuk."
yeah.
Yeah. You know what I love so much about that scene is how long it took to get that suitcase out of the car. Like
Right.
that's my favorite. The banter between like Pepper, Tony, and Happy, and how at the same time they're like ramming into I forget his name, but
Right.
you know who I'm
Right.
talking
Yeah,
about, the
yeah,
Russian
yeah.
like bad
Mhm.
guy. Yeah, I like that scene.
Yeah.
Um, I think I don't have too many notes on Armor Wars. I think those are as much of my comments as of yet.
Mhm.
Do you have anything left on that title?
No, no.
Okay,
Because of this is just based off of they haven't really given us much of like
very early on.
everything that's coming out in 2023. Like, say if anything, so far the latest that we can talk about is the trailers that we've gotten with, let's say, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, and even Thor. But it's surprising to see that, like, let's say right now, we haven't even got a teaser for Wakanda Forever. You know, so
Yeah,
that's why we can only speculate and hope and guess what's to happen. You know, so that's what this show is about. This is about predicting
yeah.
our hopes, and hopefully our hopes coming into fruition.
Speaking of hopes and dreams and happiness, are you ready to get into like Guardians of the Galaxy special,
Go,
etc.?
go for it. Go for it.
My heart bleeds for Guardians of the Galaxy. You guys already know this. Okay. So similar to my Black Panther notes, I have a lot of like known and then just kind of like prediction questions, etc. So this is one of the films that James Gunn has actually been very, very vocal about and just kind of like process. Like he announced, like, oh, we just started filming. We are 10 days left of filming. We're wrapped up with filming, and a lot of different comments along the way. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna read just a couple because I think they give us a lot of outline of what to expect emotionally, plot wise. Let's see. Okay, so one of the things that he did mention is that there is a huge unannounced actor that's going to be part of the film, and along that, there's going to be some really fun cameos, which I think is in. I think with that being stated, I feel like this is going to give us like a lot of what we were hoping maybe Multiverse of Madness would in terms of cameos, and I think that's a really exciting like statement to kind of have,
Mm-hmm.
and it's from James Gunn. I feel like I can take his word when it comes to certain expectations he set because he, as a director, as a writer, hasn't really let us down as the fandom so far with the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel in terms of that rapport we've built with this with this
Well,
director?
MCU or even DC, he hasn't let us down. So right now, like him and Tycho and even the Russos, they're in the S tier to where if anything comes out, I'm sure it's gonna be good.
100%. And this is the one. So a lot of the comments around this film is that it's going to be a emotion heavy film. And the comments between Gardens of the Galaxy, the holiday special, and Volume 3 are kind of like meshed together. And I think the reason for that is because the holiday special is going to, or I'm sorry, Volume 3 is going to follow immediately after like where the holiday special ends,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I think a lot of the comments are kind of almost referring to both of the projects. But there is a particular scene that James Gunn comments on. And so the quote is 100 days of shooting and over 3,000 shots. This is the slate for the final shot of Gardens of the Galaxies presented to me by the camera crew. It was an easy shot of Rocket seated, first with Sean Gunn, which plays one of the Ravagers. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember his name. And then nothing there, and took everything in me not to break down sobbing on the spot. So I believe this is for the end of the holiday special. And, they've already made like this statement that we are never going to see the Guardians of the Galaxy, this version of the team, assemble ever again post Volume 3. And so this seems to be Rocket in the end of one of the films, and a lot of people are thinking we're going to lose someone right from the gate in the holiday special. And so I'm wondering if this is him just kind of not just mourning for whoever we lost in this first film, or maybe if it is at the end of the second one, but also reflecting at the pain of having to go through this again. You know what I mean? Like post the events of Infinity War, post the events of Endgame,
Mm-hmm.
and also just like feeling the sensation of like James Gunn just watched this little shot that seems so simplistic, like so simple, but yet is like so like gut wrenching to push him into tears. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it was during the presentation for Feige. He mentioned that they were shooting Volume 3 and the Christmas special at the same time.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I feel like with them wrapping up everything, right? So far, we've gotten 2 Guardian projects, and we haven't lost anybody.
Mm-hmm.
At
Ha
the
ha!
time,
False. We lost Groot. Excuse me. First film.
Groot came back in the first film.
No, he did
Okay.
not. Okay, hold on, Mike. We need to, you know what we need to get? We need to get a talking stick when one of us gets like incredibly passionate. Like you have one, I have one. We pull into when it's like we're in one of those like segments. This is my segment.
Okay.
Okay, listen.
Mm-hmm.
Groot passed away in the first film. This is 100% confirmed by James Gunn, whoever is like the top behind the Guardians of the Galaxy films.
Mm-hmm.
The Groot that we've seen since then is considered to be like his I don't know if they use the verbiage offspring or like his I think they do use the term offspring because it is not the same Groot we lost in the first one. I was under the idea that it was just basically him reborn. It's not. This is a completely different Groot, which is so saddening because it does mean that we had a death in the first film.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
You're welcome.
All right. So I'm gonna
Don't
state these
disrespect.
facts, and then move on. Okay. So sure, did we lose a Groot? Sure, but did we still have a Groot? Yes. And I feel like if we lost anybody, the only person that we lost is Gamora, and we get Gamora back. But kind of moving forward, if James Gunn is putting it out there like these hashtag heartstrings, then who's to say that it's time? You know, out of all of them, Peter Quill, he's really only human. You know, so
At this point, right?
right? You know, so who knows? Like, I don't know who could take that L, but I don't see Gamora taking an L again. You know,
Yeah.
like she's good. I don't see, if anything, I don't see Groot being that. Groot is getting his own series now. You know,
Yeah.
so process of
I think
elimination
Drax-
is either going to be, and I think if anything, it could be Drax, it could be Peter Quill, and it could be Rocket. You know, so.
And I will say that there are comments from Dave Bautista. Like he put a post up that's very suggestive to say that this is the last time we're going to see Drax. So I think he's definitely in one of the people who we potentially will lose. Another comment was from the actress who plays Nebula, who said, "I don't know if this is going to be her last film." And so like I think maybe that kind of like on the line statement might be also to be like, yeah, I don't think. Maybe Nebula does die in this one, but obviously she doesn't want to be like, oh, by the way, my character dies, And I do know that, because I stayed very closely to all the little announcements and comments that all these actors made along the filming process. But there was a particular day where I have her name. I think it's Karen. Yeah, Karen Gillan, something like that.
Okay.
The actress who plays Nebula commented on like a particular scene that they shot that just like put her into tears, and it may be like her last shot ever on Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that, So got a lot of people who are potentially going to be on like the chopping block,
Yeah.
This film, I think, is going to bring us back to Terra, otherwise known as Earth, because there was a behind the scenes a shot, or just like a shot of like on set, and it's basically like a big house with flipped cop cars and Christmas decorations, and we know this is the Christmas special, and it looks like this is on Earth. It's definitely not any otherworldly area that we've known of. It's very much like our the neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And so this may be the first time that Peter comes back to Terra. I mean, no, actually that's a lie, because he did come for Endgame, but to go aside from just battling with like Thanos.
Right. Yeah, I don't have anything against that. Like I like say if anything, Peter, he being that he's from there, he may want to go visit and see if there's any family.
His uncle.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, remember me? you know?
That's what I'm thinking, because it's not like he didn't have family like that. When his mom passed away, we see this in the first film. Like, there's a lot of people in that hospital. We know,
Hmm.
like I'm assuming his uncle or maybe his grandpa was
Right.
there, and he was very much like ready to take care of Quill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before he ran out and then got abducted.
Yeah.
But just some final quotes from James Gunn regarding the film. So the holiday special is the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. This will introduce one of the greatest MCU characters of all time, and I'm curious if he's referring to Adam Warlock, because I
Hmm.
don't know if this statement was before or after like the big announcement, you
Hmm.
know. But those are my big ones in terms of just kind of definitive statements and things that have been mentioned, like
Are
the
you?
known.
But are you talking about the big announcement of the casting of Adam Warlock?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that last statement I mentioned regarding like will this film will introduce one of the greatest MCU characters of all time. I don't know if that statement was made before or after the Adam Warlock confirmation. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So if it may be referring to Adam Warlock, it may be referring to a different character.
Hmm.
But those are just some of like the quotes I pulled, because I'm telling you, James Gunn like put up with just a lot throughout the process of filming.
Hmm.
And I think this is going to be a really really good film.
Okay. Well, I have faith in James Gunn. Like I said, in everything we've seen, it's been good, you know. So him, and he's tag teaming low key with his brother, you know. So if anything, being that his brother's still in it, you know, as a Ravager and as Rocket, you know, I can see it still almost kind of being like the Gunn brothers making another movie, just like the Gunn brothers did the Peacemaker, you know. So I'm all in.
Yeah, I know. I think it's gonna be good. I have like a whole thing of just lists of different members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, because we've been told this is gonna be the last setup for this particular team. So
Hmm.
it does sound like we are gonna get another Guardians of the Galaxy. But I'm gonna save this list for whenever we get our first little sneak peek or first little official preview. You
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So have we talked about all of the movies so far?
I'm going to review quickly the list that I have of just confirmed confirmed products, confirmed lineups. So give me 1 second, and I'll let you know. I think we did, because we are kind of wrapping up in terms of the films that are coming up for Marvel. All
Hmm.
right, I got it right here. So we've talked Miss Marvel, Thor: Love and Thunder, She-Hulk, Black Panther, Holiday Special, Secret Invasion. The only one that is confirmed to be for this year is What If Season 2. There is no definitive date as of yet, but it is supposed to be coming out before the end of the year.
Oh, I was asking just in terms of the movies, because I do want to bring up the separate shows real quick. Just again, I'm gonna bring up all of them. Sorry, I'm covering my face. But like, say slated, what we have is Secret Invasion, Marvel Zombies, Agatha, Ironheart, X-Men 97, I'm Groot, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, Echo. It says Spider-Man, and I think that's gonna be like an animated Spider-Man
Yes.
series. And What If Season 2. So we've already kind of dove into a few of these, but let's talk about what we can expect Phase 4 in relation to the timelines, because if anything, I would mark Marvel Zombies out of there. Like I don't see that being like an actual storyline in the multiverse of madness right now. I feel like if anything, that's just gonna be an animated series that was similar to what we got in What If.
See, I mean, I don't disagree. Like, I don't think these are going to be stories that directly tie into, say, the stories we're, looking at now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's going to serve similar to, like, What If, where it's just exploring stories from a different
Correct.
part of the universe. Like, we have a plethora, like, not all of them interact. So I think you're right. Like, this is probably just going to be, like, a side thing. And who knows, like, maybe kind of like the What If series, like, we will see characters similar, maybe in live action form down the road, that aren't necessarily that specific character we see in like the animated series that we get. But I think you're right. The cool thing about the animated things is that it's kind of a fun way and a cheaper way for them to introduce just whatever they want in terms of like different variations of characters or storylines that if like the fans love and like they kind of can bring into the live screen at some point, you know?
But say with that, because I'm looking at it right now in terms of like, now I'm kind of thinking what can either happen during the blip or after. One of the shows to be stated is Agatha, A House of Harkness. Now, being in that we kind of got Agatha in WandaVision, and now she's kind of trapped in a prison of her mind, basically. Would you say that this storyline would possibly be during the blip?
I mean, it could. I feel like that would be kind of cool to see maybe how she ends up to find Wanda. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like maybe that's where it ties. I think that would be kind of cool. But also, I feel like maybe now that Wanda is seemingly dead and non-existent. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
spoiler. Hello, spoiler. um, maybe now that that has happened, the spell that kind of trapped Agatha in her own mind is no longer there, and so we kind of
mm,
take her where she left off, you know.
I
And
like that.
apart, yeah, like apart from her involvements in Wanda's development as the Scarlet Witch in the comics, I'm not too familiar with any other things that she does in the comics by herself. She does lead like her own coven of witches and wizards where I think they betray her, they kill her at the stake,
Mm-hmm.
very similar to what I think her coven in like the 1800s or whatever tried to do with her when she was playing with the
Right.
Darkhold.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very similar image, something I thought of definitely when we saw that scene.
Wait,
So it's
stop. Let me stop you right there. In that scene, I don't even think the Darkhold was mentioned because we didn't get anything Darkhold related until the very last episode.
I want to say that is why she was on the stake for messing with the magic of the Darkhold. I'm fairly certain that's what it was.
Man, chat, if you're listening, if you know what scene we're talking about, please get back to us. But I don't know. I would argue that point, but if anything, if you're right, then you're right, you know?
But yeah, that's kind of the other background I have with her. When she gets burned at the stake, she's still present in comics in kind of like afterlife form. I do believe she gets resurrected down the road.
Mm-hmm.
This coven that I mentioned does get killed, like destroyed by Wanda because they trap her momentarily. And actually, this particular piece in the comics is from the like 1970, 1980 story that I reference all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in this issue that Wanda is actually able to get pregnant because it's like the power she kind of had to imbue
Mm-hmm.
allowed her to get pregnant.
Okay.
So look how all that wraps around.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we didn't get that on screen, you know?
I'm just saying,
I'm
you just got to ruin
I
a good
do.
moment, don't you?
Listen, if you are on one side of the spectrum, I feel like our podcast would be good if I was on the other side a majority of the time. You know what I'm saying?
Always.
So,
That's why we do it. Yeah.
I'm looking at the list again, and I'm just kind of going over what we've already gotten out of the way. I want to kind of mark out, cause Moon Knight's up there. She-Hulk is coming.
Mhm.
Miss Marvel's right around the corner. But the only other show that we have a little bit of knowledge about on this list, aside from X-Men, would be Echo. You know, and with that, I'm curious just to see where that story's gonna go. We talked about her for a second. For you all who watched Hawkeye, of course, that was the deaf character in Hawkeye. She's a pretty badass one-legged martial artist. It's one leg, right? Like she's missing a foot.
I think you're right. I think you're
Yeah.
right.
And now she's getting her own spin-off, and now like say with that being said, I'm now curious if we're still talking phase 4. Do you believe that now with her, of course, now that I would put her under the street level of Marvel, we're gonna get a little bit more of her and Kingpin interacting.
I mean, I think so, especially because he was so involved in her story in Hawkeye, right? That was basically like her uncle is how they
Mm-hmm.
referred to him. And so, I mean, obviously at the end, she does realize that he's a very bad
Yeah.
guy and hasn't done a lot of things in like her interest. And I believe he was the one who was behind like her father's death,
Yeah.
right? Like he set that up
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah. And so I would definitely imagine Kingpin being involved in it. We know he's not dead.
Right.
The final kind of scenes in Hawkeye were very much mirrored from the comics, like almost like right off the
And you said he
page.
lost an
And
eye,
just like in the
right?
comics, like he loses an eye, but he's still alive, you know? So, yeah, like I could definitely see him coming back in that way.
Okay. Um. Well, I think that is everything that I have for the Phase 4 predictions. Did you have anything else you wanted to kind of bring up?
I think that's what I've got so far. The big ones I had kind of notes for were Black Panther and Guardians of the
Mm-hmm.
Galaxy. Still a lot of titles to go. I feel like we've already gotten so much content from Marvel since
Yeah.
Endgame, and at the same time, it feels like we're only scratching the surface. You know?
Well, like I mentioned, like it so far it's been like 11 titles, and this is movie and shows combined, you know. And I think right now, after watching that one thing by Feige, I think one of the things I'm kind of most curious about that's like in the near future is She-Hulk, because even in that announcement, he announced that Abomination was coming back for that. So if I had actually watched this before, then it wouldn't have been so much a surprise. But he also did mention that her and her law firm are going to be representing familiar characters that we've either seen already or that we've known from the comics.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm now curious just to see who we're going to see in that series.
It's like I mean, this is the phase that is going to line up a lot of characters. You know, I'm sure like before the end of this phase, we're going to see like Daredevil officially brought back into the scene, and maybe a lot of characters we haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen. You know, so that it loads like that punch for whatever the second phase of this, or I guess like phase five, just to not make it confusing, phase five will bring. And I'm excited to see like the teams. You know what I mean? Like I love seeing these characters kind of like on their own and seeing the development of them like as they are. But I'm also just really looking forward to seeing them interact with other characters, like the way we got with Yelena Belova when she met Kate Bishop. You know what I mean? Like I'm excited to see further interactions like
Mm-hmm.
that. You know, like Spider-Man interacting with other people. All of these characters, you know, way down the line with Moon Knight gets to interact with other of these like characters.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned like West Coast Avengers. I think it's Clint Barton and Mockingbird, who I forget her name, but
Mm-hmm.
his wife. I believe they are the founding members of like the West Coast
Okay.
Avengers. Maybe that's a team we're gonna see lined up down the road. But it's you know there's a lot to look forward to. Multiverse of Madness I thought was going to give us a lot more in terms of like bringing in characters and getting those cameos
Mm-hmm.
in and kind of lining up. We're getting us excited about future characters and team ups, but we're gonna definitely get it from these films coming up, these projects coming up.
The last film that Feige mentioned that we haven't brought up, and it's not really on the forefront. I'm sure it's gonna be maybe the last movie of Phase 4 is Fantastic Four. Um,
Yes.
we
Oh, we haven't talked about that. Yeah, yeah.
we of course got the quote unquote cameo of John Krasinski. Do we know if he's actually playing Mr. Fantastic? No. That may have been a variant. But I feel like if anything, being that they already stated Loki season 2 is coming out, and did you mention that they've already started filming?
They are in early production, I believe. I do not think they started filming just
Okay,
yet.
I feel like if anything, uh, season 2 of Phase 4, no, season 2 of Phase 4, season 2 of Loki would still probably occur in Phase 4, and if anything, we're gonna get a little bit more Kang and his variants, and if anything, uh, that may introduce us to Reed Richards. And Phase 4, as of right now, like, this has been the longest phase in terms of years, you know, because we can say technically phase 4 started in 2020, you know, and now it's coming on 2023 to where they still have movies and shows slated to where uh, we may get that come end of 2023, top of 2024, and if that does come as far as the Fantastic Four is concerned, then that is what's going to set us up for season 5 and season 5.
What is that? We're tired.
Oh my goodness. What am I trying to say? Not season 5, phase 5,
Phase
phase 5.
5.
And that's where I feel like phase 5 is going to get more intergalactic. So we're going to take all of these introductions here in phase 4. Like you said, this is kind of just like how phase 1 was introducing us to a lot of characters. Marvel is now investing more time into bringing these brand new characters in and making sure they have good stories, just so we can see more of them. And I'm curious now just to see how phase 4 is going to end.
I Same, because you know it's gonna have to leave on like not a cliffhanger per se, but I think leaving us wanting and craving more for like the, you know what I mean? Like I think it's gonna leave us in like a suspenseful phase. I think that's what I'm trying to kind of convey. But just with all of like the things that you mentioned, one of the things I kind of wanted to ask is do you think Loki and the Fantastic Four are going to actually hold on before I even ask that? Do you know in terms of release date when does Quantum Mania come out?
No, and I just watched it and I missed it. I didn't get the date for it.
I just pulled it up right now, and this is important for my question, which is why I'm going to look it up. Okay, so Loki season 2 is set to release early 2023, so pretty much around the corner. And Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is supposed to be released February of 2023. So I feel like, you know, obviously these are going to come out pretty close in time range. I wonder, like, whichever one comes first, I feel like it's going to set up the tone for the other one, and like, or vice versa. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Especially because we know Kang's going to be in Quantumania. So if say Loki's set to be coming out in January of
Mm-hmm.
2023, I feel like that would be such a great tie-in, you know?
I think that makes sense, and I like that because as of right now, there's still no big bad, like at all. Like if we were to say like he who remained in Loki, he took a sword to the chest and he's out of there. So as of right now, we have no idea. I mean, yes, of course we can speculate. Kang could be the big bad, but there's nothing to find like a Thanos, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
as of right now, just to kind of break down the different factions of Marvel, I think street level wise, the only thing that we need to look out for is the power broker, and if the power broker is actually Carter, Agent Carter, um, then she can technically be the big bad, being that she not only has uh, that one place under her belt, but now she has the power of the U.S. government, which she said at the end of uh, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So if anything, she could be a big bad for the next story for Captain America. Who knows? She can be a big bad to where, if anything, she can connect with, like we've said, Shang-Chi's sister, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't put her as like an intergalactic big bad. But that's what I'm saying in terms of Phase 4 kind of separating and set us up for Phase 5. Now we're gonna get these different factions of who's the bad guy and in each one. I don't know. I'm kind of spewing, but I feel like it makes sense because I don't think, like I said, we're not gonna get all of these coming together in one. I feel like if anything, everybody's gonna separate, and now it's just going to be based on power levels.
And I mean, it makes total sense. And like on the note of what you're talking about with kind of having that big bad, like right now, it's like around the corner we have the sensation and the whiff of like, um, you know, Kang, right, coming into much more of like a present feel because we haven't met Kang the
Correct.
Conqueror yet. Like we've only met like one of his variants. And so it's kind of like what how like Thanos was, where we got a whiff of him in
Mm-hmm.
Avengers, right? We got like that last little scene, but he's still in the back end of things. But even then, a lot of people are suspecting, and the more that I read, that Doctor Doom might actually be one of the bigger bads at play once we get into Secret
Mm.
Wars and things like
Okay.
that. And actually, I'm trying to find the piece because I read it before we hopped on, and I think I may have like clicked out of it. I was as I was looking things up like in our discussion. Um, but Doctor Doom has oh here we go. Okay, so Doctor Doom set his eyes on Wakanda to seize vibranium, and he has a lot of conflicts in that realm of things. And I wonder if maybe there's going to be some Easter egg or reference to Doctor Doom in
Wakanda Forever.
Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Yeah. And he might be a big bad that's like looming around the corner even further, like to be like the bigger one, because keep in mind Kang is coming into Quantum Media, like that's relatively speaking not too far
Mm-hmm.
away. We didn't really get Thanos at the forefront of things until super recently, like Infinity War almost. We only saw really things kind of in the background,
So
up
with
into
wait,
that
so with
point.
that being said, do you think that Scott Lang and the Wasp they're going to defeat Kang, and that's
Not
it?
totally, not totally, but still, like, let's just like keep some like to have some perspective with it. Like, that's really, really early on for the big bad of the phase to be facing off directly with the hero. And it's either they somehow do defeat him, or this is another Infinity War where Scott Lang and the Wasp are dead or something. You know what I mean? And I don't really see that being the case. For our heroes to lose again in a film, at least not for Ant-Man and the
Mm-hmm.
Wasp. So he's going to be defeated to some extent. I don't think he's going to be killed, but we've seen in What If that Ant-Man is a force to be reckoned with, and there's so much more beyond like to his power than what we've seen like in the Infinity
Mm-hmm.
Saga. So he's definitely going to give Kang like a run for his money. So just being that he's being introduced like in the forefront so early on, he may not be like the ultimate big bad that we kind of really saw him to be when this phase started off. And maybe Doctor Doom is something closer to what's going to be at the end of the line for this
I
phase,
don't think Doctor Doom, if anything, is going to be the at the end of this phase, just because, like you mentioned Secret Wars, right? And I don't want to get people confused with Secret Wars with Secret Invasion. And Secret Wars, I feel like, if anything, that is the Avengers Endgame. That is the huge
yeah.
movie that concludes multiple phases. So if we're talking Doctor Doom, Doctor Doom, though he may be referenced, I feel like we won't get any real sighting of Doctor Doom until the Fantastic Four. And that just may be, honestly, a good version of him before he initially goes bad. He's always been the quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote smart guy, and then something happens. It's either he gets his it's in the movies is when he gets his powers, and then he's just automatically bad. But say right now, as far as Victor Von Doom, um, we know him currently to be, let's say, a rich scientist, and um, we can't speculate anything outside of that.
And I mean, that's totally true. And like I said, one of my projects to finish by the end of the year is just like to read all of these different issues that we know are going to be like very much involved, like Secret Wars, Secret Invasion. Since I think we're coming closer to those things being a little bit more like directly involved, Secret Invasion specifically. But Secret Wars, just to kind of like revisit it, like because it's basically like the final two
Yeah.
worlds and
Mm-hmm.
universes battling out in this huge battlefield. So it's kind of going to be like civil war on like crack,
Right.
because it's going to be just like this massive battle between heroes and villains alike, against universes. And
But that's where,
I don't know
but
specifically.
I would
Yeah,
say,
go
but
ahead.
that's where I feel like if anything, if we built a solid story on mutants, then we can definitely get the Secret Wars. But yet we haven't got that yet.
And that's why I think that's like you're totally right. That's going to be the end game to this saga, right? Like the saga for Infinity War took a decade, like maybe just a little bit over. Like this
Right.
is a whole new saga. We're only in year two, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So we have like a good chunk of time. I mean, like they have 30 titles in the works as we speak. Like they just went on a retreat to plan out the next decade, So I think they have time to definitely do exactly that, to kind of give justice to the X-Men, really come, bring them into the MCU, Fantastic Four, all of those. So they definitely got the time for it, and that's the thing I like, is that they're not rushing for these things. If something like this massive is going to be set up, it needs to be done incredibly well, and they got the time for it.
All right. So let me ask you this: in terms of characters that we don't see for the remainder of Phase 4, are we done with Doctor Strange
No, we're definitely not done with Dog. Oh, for
for
this
this
phase, you mean?
phase? Because I feel like we've
For this
seen him in maybe
phase.
4 projects. So,
Mhm.
like, we've seen a lot of him, even though he's only had one movie this phase. What he's had this, um, No Way Home. Was he? Well, I feel like he was in something else as well. Or I'm thinking about Wong. Wong is in everything.
Wong is we're 100% done with Wong. He's going to be in She-Hulk. I'm sure he's going to be in some other things. But when it comes to Doctor Strange, like I think you might be right, because I can't think of a title that he might be involved in, at least from the ones we
Hmm.
see so far. Like maybe Miss Marvel, just because they seem to be very. Actually, they're not even multiversal like
Right.
affected. No, I wouldn't even. I'd
Right.
scratch that. Yeah. No, he might be done for this phase. Like I think the same thing for Wanda. Like she's been confirmed to not be in like Agatha House of
Hmm.
Harkness. So it might be a pause on those characters for now, which kind of sucks, because we thought like this was gonna be like the phase that they become very much at the front of the stories, now that we no longer have like Cap and Iron Man, like
Hmm.
etc. But I think they're out for the count at this point until phase five.
Well, it's not like because we didn't have Cap or Iron Man. Like, say if we're talking characters in Phase 4 that are that were, I don't want to say part of the original, but they're still kind of carrying on. We still have Hawkeye. We have Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I need to look at the list. I don't have it in front of me.
Thor.
And Thor, and it's like we
Thor.
still have these
Bruce.
these strong personalities to where, I'm sure this is the one Thor that we're gonna get in this phase, and this may be uh, the last time we see Thor for a while, because I think if anything, in the trailer we see the Guardians leave, so it's just him and Korg. So him and the Guardians are
Hmm.
parting ways. So I don't know if we'll see him and the Guardians. There may be a chance, but as of right now, as far as characters um, remaining, I think Phase 4 is just brand new characters. We're done with Doctor Strange. We're done with Spider Man. Like, we're not gonna get another Spider Man probably until Phase 5.
For a while.
Um,
Yeah. If.
right. Um, we're gonna get Rhodey in Armor Wars. Um, yeah, there's no mention of Falcon or Captain America. They said there's gonna be another Captain America and the Winter Soldier, but I'm gonna say that's Phase 5. You know,
Mhm.
um, Shang-Chi I don't see coming back in Phase 4. Um, and the Marvel little retreat, they got to redo whatever they were planning on doing. The Eternals, I'm sure they had to have a sit down. So Eternals, we're not gonna see maybe.
Who messed up?
And if anything, uh, the only thing I can say about the Eternals that I would hope for would just a possible cameo in the Congress of worlds in Thor.
Yeah. I think, and you've mentioned a couple times, like, I think we need some like soft tie-ins with the rest of the world to kind of, or the MCU, the worlds of the MCU, to give the Eternals the rapport that they were missing in the film that they were
Hmm.
in. Just because they needed redemption. Like the characters are cool. Like, I mean, we got Cersei, like we got Angelina Jolie's in this, like for God's
Hmm.
sakes. Like they need to revive these characters, and I think, like, just say we saw Cena in Thor Love and Thunder, like I feel like that would be such a great way to kind of pull them in to build that rapport,
Just
and
for it to
maybe
make
Guardians of
sense,
the
you know, just
Galaxy.
so like if anything, why is there such a confusion in the world of 616? Just to say that like Sprite is correcting, it's like, oh, this is really Athena, da 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 da, you know, and it's not Athena. So if they could clarify that just a little bit, if even if it was just like one line, you know, and just brought
That's it.
her into that Congress, then I feel like that would appease everybody who is curious about that.
Oh, 100%. And I think Guardians of the Galaxy would be a potential spot to maybe interact with, say, like I think his name is Firefox, like Thanos's brother. And just things to kind of tie it into the bigger world, because one of the biggest criticisms of Eternals is that they had such a like a world dominating event when we don't have a lot of, I think, time with them, like for them to earn that, so maybe just interacting with other characters. It's kind of like when you hang out with a cool kid, like you automatically become
Yeah.
cool. Like something like that for the fandom, because we need it, and we know these characters are going to be involved in a lot of the stories moving forward. So I agree. I feel like that would be like, I think it's the phase of redemption for a couple of characters, the Eternals, Captain Marvel, like to just bring them back up into the
Do you
fandom.
know off the top of your head, this is a random question, just in terms of the Eternals, do you remember if Athena was kind of pulled into the sky, or was she on the ship when I forgot the Celestial's name took him?
Cena and I forget who else is on the ship searching for Cersei and the rest, because they're MIA, and that's where Firefox, if I'm saying the right name, I feel like Firefox is an insurance.
Were they? I don't even think they were
But
searching for them, because I think in that in credit scene they noticed that, I don't know if they read on their sensors that the rest of them aren't on Earth, but like say the story ended to where they separated, to where a few of them were going to stay behind on Earth and a few of them were going to
Oh, that's
find,
right.
I think, maybe other Eternals, who knows. um
I think it's like the communication got lost, where it's like, oh, it's been more time, and it's like they started getting
yeah,
worried, and then this is where like the brother
right,
Thanos comes on board, and he's like, oh, they're in trouble, et cetera, et cetera, and then he like kind of flirts with his essential cousin
yeah,
Cena,
yeah.
um, so yeah, and like we talked about this because of this like end credit scene, and being that like the music change, it was very Guardians of the Galaxy-esque, and it almost overshadowed the film. I feel like it would make sense for these characters to kind of come back or have some form of a cameo or something like that, maybe in Guardians of the Galaxy, even if it's an end
Hmm.
credit.
Here's what I want to leave off with, and this is something that, if anything, I know our June is kind of wrapped up in the next two shows that we're going to talk about, but I would like to discuss Marvel as the separations in the teams that could possibly happen. I know we already were talking predictions of these shows, but if anything, like I've written down so far, I have two teams, but I want to make a couple more teams, and as of right now, it's like Street and then Intergalactic. But from there, uh, this is gonna be quote unquote my prediction of where Phase 5 is gonna go. So we've already kind of wrapped Phase 4 today, but I kind of wanna kind of make it a thing for us to do one day, to where we like say on the screen I'm just gonna have multiple characters on one side, and then on the other side of the screen we have the different levels, and then we just place what character we want to put on each level.
Yeah, I feel like that would be so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
cool. We gotta plan it out.
Yeah. So, um,
Yay!
I think that's everything I got. I really enjoyed this show. I hope you all enjoyed it because a lot of this again is speculation, and I hope everything that we mention comes true.
Scratch that. Our word is
Oh
God.
wow.
We know what we're talking about. This is absolute.
Definitely.
We are inevitable, and so are our
Man,
predictions.
our predictions are Thanos basically. You know what I'm saying?
Basically, but even more so. It's no, this was a really fun episode. I feel like whenever we do like predictions, and honestly, this is such a like perfect timing because we're halfway through the
Mhm.
year. You know, we have the other half, which is bringing a bunch of shows, a bunch of
Mhm.
films, and then 2023 is just a whole other mess on that DC catch up. We were so excited to talk about you guys as well, but that's gonna have to save till 2023. So
And that's a
yeah, Marvel's
bummer.
killing it.
Like just because at the end of the day, I would have loved to talk a little bit more DC, and now we have the boys filling that void, and I've already watched episode 1, and it's already kind of crazy, and so I'm a little excited to talk about it next week. We're going to be talking about that and the first
Miss Marvel.
episode of Miss Marvel. So tune in next week when we talk about the 2 show deep dive. We're actually going into 2 shows next Friday, and yeah, that's gonna be our June. It's Miss Marvel and the boys. So keep it locked. I would love if anything if there was a Stranger Things comic. I would just say we can do that as well.
I was about to no, I okay, so I was watching the first episode of like the most recent season and it's really good. And I asked Brian, I'm like, this is a Netflix original, isn't it? He's like, yeah. I'm like, damn it!
God
Because like I
damn
was
it,
hoping it was a con
Netflix.
we should just do it.
Listen,
We should just do it.
well,
We'll see.
we'll chat about it just because I've already finished it. Okay, so if and when you decide to catch up and finish it all, because this is technically, I don't want to say the first half of this last season. They're only gonna release like I think a few more, maybe like 3 or 4 more episodes, and then the show's completely done. So if we wanna chat about it, I'm good. Like we can chat about it later on.
Well, you know something also a little bit more authentic to our CCU vibes here, and our platform is the
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan TV show. Have you been watching
Yeah, I'm
that? Have
caught
you
up.
caught
I'm
up on
caught
that?
up.
I feel like we've talked about this before. You've seen the Mandalorian and
I
all of
sure
that as
have.
well, right?
Yep.
This may be something we got to do, guys. Like we were hesitant because I know it was the Boba Fett show obviously took place while we was filming and our show has
Right.
existed. But you know, like I think Chill and I agree, like we're not as diverse in this arena. But obviously, this is the CCU. We got to diversify ourselves. So maybe Mandalorian season 2, we can kind of start diving into all of the Star Wars stuff. But you guys let us
Wait.
know. You guys let us know what you like.
Oh, never mind. Season 3, because we've already.
Oh,
Yeah.
season 3. Totally. Yeah. 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 You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. You're right.
Yeah. Let us know. Because if anything, Grace and I will be thrilled to even chat about it. Because those shows so far have been good, and as of right now, the way Obi-Wan is coming out. Have you watched the first episode?
I have not because it's been. I mean, my week has
It's
been
been kind of
insane, and
crazy.
my it's been crazy, and my boyfriend just watches it without me because he hates
Dang,
me. So,
man. Well,
no, it's yeah,
even
it's like
from let's say first episode, it gives us what we want from the beginning. So Obi-Wan is one of those to where if anything, maybe July if we want to talk about a wrap up, then sure. But if anything, again, let us know. We can go if you want us to go into the Star Wars, the world of Star Wars, and yeah, well, we can do that.
absolutely. This is the
This
way.
is the way,
This is the way.
definitely.
Just let us know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All
So
right.
this was episode 36 of the Comic Cinematic Universe. We'll be back next week. Hope you all enjoy your weekend, and I hope Grace, you enjoy your weekend.
You as well, guys. Be ready. We are getting close to celebrating a
Look at
year.
that.
Our birthday's
Look
coming
at
around, so
that.
stay tuned, guys.
We may
Stay
plan something
tuned. We will
special
see
for
you.
that. Yeah.
We will.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. Have a good
Later.
one.